Woosa, wake up South Africa. Woosa, wake up South Africa. You've been sleeping far too long. Wake up South Africa. Now come along and sing this song. Wake up South Africa.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so very much for joining part 2 of today's workshop. I would just like to very quickly go over some house rules. Please kindly switch off. Please kindly switch and keep your cameras on so we may have a welcoming and personable session. All mics must be muted and will remain so until questions and comments time towards the end of each session. Please, you raise your hand to be unmuted and feel free to type your questions and comments on Facebook or in the Zoom chat panel to the admin as we go along, and they will be attended to after the class. So thank you very much. I think we can hand it right on over to Devotee Mataji.
Okay, welcome everybody to part number 2. Om Agyantamandasya Agyananjalasalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasma Shri Vinama Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Sabadam Yanugutale Swayam Upakaramayam Danati Swapadantikam Namaham Vishnubhada Krishna Pista Utali Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Dinamane Namaste Saraswati Neve Govani Pachayane Nivashesha Shunivari Pasachari Satarine Vanchakapa Jubasha Kripa Sinvevata Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Go Bhaktavanna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so before we continue with our discussion, Savyasachi Prabhu, you asked whether you should make the materials available. So yes, please, you make them available. I cannot, do all this screen sharing and all this. I'm not expert in this. So you please tell if possible, right now in the chat, the devotees where they can download the materials. And this may have to be also repeated for the latecomers, because as far as I know, the latecomers will not see what is in the chat before they join, right? That's what technical assistants told me in other seminars. So in other seminars where I share materials, whenever somebody joins to the seminar, then they write again some chat, and give them the link where they can get the materials, because especially for this session now for the afternoon, it will be helpful if you have the materials in front of you, right? So all our participants now, do you all have the link to download these materials? No.
We're about to just put it in the chat.
Okay, so
share it in
please
the
do
chat.
so immediately, as soon as possible, so that everybody can have the materials. And then another thing is also, I would like to share my email address in the chat, because I saw in the morning session there was some inquiries in the chat how to get the books, if people want books. So if you want books, or if you have any other question or something, I'm more than happy to communicate with you. And my email address is Devotee, DEVAKI, @pamho.net. Pamho is this ISKCON network, stands for Please Accept My Humble Obeisances. So very simple email address, devaki@pamho.net. So if anybody wants any books, then please contact me and we can work out how we get them to you, right? So now, yeah, shall we just start, even if people don't have the link? I mean, here we get the link. Okay, good. Yes. So, and when you download these materials, you will find 5 sessions. And we are doing now this afternoon, we go to session number 4. This morning we had mainly the first session and a tiny part of the second session, but then the second part of second session and third session we skipped because we don't have the time. So, and now this afternoon we go to session 4. So do you all have now the materials in front of you? Yes. And you have gone to session number 4. Yes. And please switch on your videos that I can see your smiling faces there, and not only some black holes with names in it. I like to see who I'm talking to. Okay, good. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So now, the topic of this afternoon session is the qualities which are required to be able to give shelter to others. And I mentioned in the morning very briefly why this is such an important topic. So first reason why this is so important is that we know where to take shelter, so that we know who is actually a qualified shelter giver, right? So we don't take shelter with an unqualified person and then get very disappointed. So we have to have some idea what to look for, And then the second reason why this discussion is so important is that we actually know what qualities we have to cultivate in order to eventually become a shelter giver. Because as we said this morning, we don't want to lead forever a superficial life by just worrying about ourselves or not reaching out to others. No, we want to reach out to others. We want to uplift others. And for that, we have to know what qualifications we actually have to aspire for. And this is interesting. As I mentioned this morning, I have given this seminar for about 20 years now in all different parts of the world. And, or let's say 15 years. It took some time to grow it and you know, put it together. So, and very often I actually come across this, that there is senior grihastas, you know, who have been around for 20, 30 years, and they have done everything. They've been on the altar, they've cooked the Sunday feast, they've done this, they've done that, and they're somehow a little at a loss, and they think, so what is next? How can I actually move forward and make some contribution to Prabhupada's movement? What next? And after they listened to this session, especially, very often I had that feedback from such more senior devotees, that they said to me, now I know exactly what to strive for. You know, now I know what I should move on to actually become a mentor, a coach, to actually selflessly reach out to others and uplift them. You know, yes, that actually should be, as we said, it should be the natural, you know, the natural development, if we actually seriously practice Krishna consciousness, that we come to this point where we really want to uplift others and care for others in a genuine and selfless way, you know. Yes, that is, I mean, serving the devotees is really the secret of success, we can say. You know, we should be absorbed and almost obsessed of that thought. How can I serve the devotees? And what better way to serve the devotees is there than giving them support and inspiration and guidance and helping them to grow? I mean, I don't know any better way of serving the devotees, you know? Yes, obviously, you know, such a person will become very dear to Krishna, because Krishna sees, oh, this person is actually concerned about my devotees, and my devotees are so dear to me, you know. So, and if somebody cares about Krishna's devotees, that conquers Krishna's heart very clearly, you know. So I personally like to emphasize this, you know, that there's actually no better way of serving the devotees than actually guiding them and helping them to grow and develop themselves in their spiritual life, you know. So I hope you all have the list of qualifications in front of you. So we will just go through this list, and some points are pretty self-explanatory. They don't need much elaboration, but then some do need further elaboration. But we will still keep it pretty concise and to the point, because, you know, we also want to have some questions, discussions, and maybe then I will simply see what questions come up and in which direction we want to go when we use the last bit of the time, you know. Usually for this one lesson, number 4, I usually use 3 hours, you know, but now we have only 1 hour and 50 minutes, you know, so I will have to, you know, be a little brief, you know, just to leave enough time also for some other general points and concluding action plans or something. So first and foremost quality or qualification we have to have is that we actually have to be sheltered, you know. So on your list it says here, we can only give shelter if we have shelter ourselves. So we actually have to have a mentor ourselves. Otherwise we cannot be a mentor to others. We have to be sheltered. We can only give something to others what we have ourselves, right? And we can easily imagine, you know, let us imagine a scenario if our mentor doesn't have a mentor. What can happen? Well, he can go off the track, you know, and then he doesn't have anybody to correct him. Or he can, yes, he can face some difficulties in his service of mentorship, but then who will actually guide him and who will help him how to balance things properly, you know, and his own spiritual life can become compromised, you know, and then he may get spiritually weak, and then he may even fall down, right? As we mentioned this morning, Bharat Maharaj, perfect example, you know, he tried to be a mentor for the deer, a caregiver, but he was not taken care of. He didn't have a mentor who would tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, just forget about the deer now, it's enough. You know, you're minimizing your spiritual practice here. You know, you're getting too emotionally caught up and involved. So his problem was he was not sheltered himself, and therefore he could not give shelter to the deer and fell down and took birth as a deer. Perfect example, you know. And also, you know, let us imagine our mentor doesn't have a mentor. So it could, for example, be that we see something a little unusual there happening in his behavior, you know, the mentor. But then we don't have anybody to go to reveal our mind and to report, you know. But if our mentor has a mentor and we see something a little unusual in his behavior, in his etiquette with the other gender or whatever it may be, so then the most natural thing, and even according to Vaishnava etiquette, is that if our mentor has a problem or there's something unusual happening in his behavior, we should be going to his mentor and reveal our mind, and then leave it up to him to deal with it according to how he considers it, you know, important. You know, maybe we imagine everything, maybe there's nothing there to worry about, you know, or maybe there is. So if we simply report to his mentor, then we have done our duty, and then it's up to him to deal with it and take it further, or maybe there's nothing to deal with, you know. So these are all pretty practical examples and good reasons why a mentor has to have a mentor. And of course, how can we preach that we should have a mentor if we don't set the example of having one ourselves, you know? So obviously our words will not have so much power if we are not also setting the example ourselves, you know? And yeah, this is also something that is not so often understood. You know, sometimes we may think, oh, I have Srila Prabhupada, I have the holy name, that is enough shelter. But no, Srila Prabhupada, holy name, they will not come and pull our ears. You know, we need a living person who can pull us up on things, you know, yes. So it's not enough just to have Guru and Prabhupada and the holy name and Prabhupada's books and all that. But no, we also need a person, you know, who can actually observe us and see, you know, how we are serving, how we are acting, how we are cooperating, and then, you know, addressing things also when there is a need, and also to whom we can go when we face some problems, because serving as a mentor is not an easy task. And we may need some guidance, you know, how to actually do things. It is a service that has to be learned, like most other services also, right? So now, so this is the really basic, you know, grounds, you know, on which we can build up the qualities of becoming a mentor. That first of all, we have to be sheltered. We have to have a mentor. And not only formally in name only, but no, the more we are actually deeply from within the heart, the more we are sheltered, the more we have the solid grounds under our feet to give shelter to others. It's proportionally, you know, the more we are sheltered, the more we can give shelter to others, you know, like that. So now let us continue. Another point is, you know, a mentor should have a nice understanding of the philosophy and practice of Krishna consciousness. So this means he doesn't have to be a pundit. He doesn't have to be super learned or anything. He doesn't even have to be a class giver or preacher, but he simply should have a nice understanding of the philosophy and the practice, how to actually practice Krishna consciousness. You know, that he has to have, definitely, right? Should have been active within ISKCON for a reasonable length of time. By the way, let me tell you, this list is not coming from me. Actually, His Holiness Nranja Swami, he wrote a book taking care of Krishna's devotees, and he got that list in there. And I maybe added a few little things, but the basic list is from him, from that book. And as far as I know, also he did not come up with this list, but he got it of Radha Swami, who also published some little booklet about, you know, mentorship and so on. And he quotes this list there. So just to make it clear, it's not my creation here, this list. I'm simply following in the parampara of devotee care and mentorship and so on, you know. So, and in these other two books of Nranja Swami and Radha Swami, there is exactly this formulation. Should have been active within ISKCON for a reasonable length of time. And actually, you know, the way it is formulated, reasonable length of time could be anything. It doesn't say anything, actually. You know, what is reasonable length of time? Is this 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What is reasonable length of time? It's completely stretchable, you know. And I think this was purposefully formulated like this because we cannot give an exact time frame there. We cannot say a mentor has to be in ISKCON 5 years, 10 years. No, no. It's a very individual thing depending on how we actually apply ourselves to the process of Krishna consciousness. You know, and this is how I understand it, that purposefully it was formulated in such a stretchable way, you know, just to make this point, that it is an individual thing. We have to look, you know, in each and every situation, whether that person is long enough in ISKCON or whether the person should be active a little more in ISKCON. And of course, the point is also he should be active within ISKCON and not just passive, you know, but he actually has to be active. And when I say he, of course, I always mean he and she, you know, it's not that I'm only talking about men here or something. Prabhupada does that a lot too in the books, in his books, you know, he always uses he, meaning human being, person, you know, and not gender related, you know, so please don't understand my he here as gender related, but, you know, I just don't want to always say he or she, and, you know, so it's just, I'm just saying he, you know. Yeah, so it's, one has to be active and it has to be considered in each and every person's, you know, situation separately, whether that person is long enough and actively enough in ISKCON or whether it needs a bit more time. Those who are coming late, they got the link for the materials. Yeah, can you pass this on, Savyasachi Prabhu, or whoever is doing the technical backup here, that the latecomers are getting the links for the material. So then the next one. Should be able to give balanced advice according to time, place, and circumstance. Very important, you know, because Krishna consciousness is all about finding the right balance. So, and in order to be able to give balanced advice, what does a mentor have to be himself? Well, he has to be balanced himself, right? And only if he himself is balanced, then he can give balanced advice to others, right? So yes, a mentor has to be balanced himself in all the different aspects of spiritual practice, because there's so many different aspects: the sadhana, the service, taking care of family, the material needs, the spiritual needs. It's a whole thing, and Vaishnava association and nourishing the bhakti lata. And it's a whole juggling act of balancing, all the different needs have to be met, And we can also say that in order to actually give balanced advice, it is definitely very helpful if a mentor has practical experience in all kinds of fields of service. When a mentor knows what it means to distribute books, when a mentor knows what it means to be on the altar and do puja, when a mentor knows what it means to be in the kitchen and cook a feast, when a mentor knows what it means to take care of young devotees and bhakta leader or whatever, so the more experience a mentor has in all the different aspects of devotional life, the more he is equipped to give balanced advice, And I mean, in my days when I joined in 85, this was still the understanding that actually a devotee should get experience in all the different aspects of temple life. So I was 4 years in the Brahmacharini ashram, so I had to do pujari backup service and sankirtan, and then as soon as I was second initiated, on the altar, cooking, this, that. So we were going through all the departments and serving there. And in that way, we had experience in all the different fields of Krishna consciousness, and this is very helpful. Then you actually know what it means to stand on the street and distribute books, and you can actually give some encouragement, some guidance, and so on, Yes. Then next one, should not have the tendency to take extreme and controversial positions on issues, should not be a fundamentalist with Kanishta mentality, fanaticism. So this is already a little bit more compact, And we can actually say, people who have this tendency of taking extreme and controversial positions on issues, they usually are not so balanced, right? And that's why they take extreme and controversial positions, And it is also connected with the false ego, actually. Very often people, when we tend to be extreme on things, there's a little bit that ego, the false ego is pushing us to somehow be different than everybody else and stand out. And, well, my opinion is like this, so that it is, it's subtle, but it is a bit of an ego problem very often also, So naturally, if people have this tendency to take extreme and controversial positions, then we attract people who also are extreme and tend to have controversial opinions about things, and then very easily disharmony will develop, and people are antagonistic and so on, and that's why a person who's got that tendency is obviously not such a good mentor, because people will follow him then in his extreme and controversial mood there, and it can create a lot of disruption and conflicts in a community, Also, we can say, in this category, we can also take or include this tendency for canvassing for our own guru. This is also something which we actually shouldn't do, Which Diksha guru we accept is a very personal matter, and we are all Prabhupada's family, you know, so there should not be any canvassing, oh, take off my guru, and, you know, he is the best, and all this. This is very, yeah, it is not recommended, you know. And sometimes I have observed this in different parts of the world. Sometimes this tendency is there that, you know, people, yeah, they canvass that young devotees should take initiation of their guru. And in a subtle way, we actually try to increase our influence like that. You know, very naturally, if we are a senior devotee and everybody takes initiation of my guru, then, oh, I am the senior one to all these young devotees, and they're all, you know, disciples of my guru. So I'm here, the big Shiksha guru, and they all have to follow me. So this is really, this contaminates the whole atmosphere, actually. And, you know, guru, choosing a guru should not be, you know, used to increase our power and influence or something by canvassing and getting them into our camp or our political party here or something. So we have to be very careful. This, you know, this is none of our business who devotees accept as guru. You know, this is between them and Krishna, and it doesn't matter who they accept as guru, we can still be a mentor to them, you know. It's not a question of guru that they all have to be, you know, the disciples of one guru or something. No. And the example we have in Ukraine, there are so many initiating spiritual masters there, so many. And the mentorship program is beyond the guruship, you know, program or structure or whatever, you know. So it doesn't matter who spiritual master devotees are, they do accept any mentor who they feel inspired by and who they can personally connect, you know. Yes. Yeah, so then the next one is should be mature and sober. I mean, also, by the way, if you have some questions, you just take a little note there, you know, and we will soon open up and see. Maybe we won't go through the whole list. Maybe after this one, yeah, a couple more I will say. And then maybe we can quickly see if there's any questions simply only about the points we have discussed, nothing else, please. Let's keep the discussion to the topic, right? And only questions, no realizations. The realizations we keep for the very end. But in this 2-hour seminar, we just want to stick to the topic. So yes, the next one is should be mature and sober. So that means, you know, we shouldn't be whimsical and frivolous, and one day, we are so enthusiastic, and then next day we are not enthusiastic, and, you know, going up and down there. No, we should simply be mature and sober, you know, and steady and, you know, committed like that, you know. Yes. Has to be some maturity there within spiritual life and also within life experience, you know, there has to be a certain maturity there, right? So then the next one is a little bit more compact. Should demonstrate a good standard of sadhana, etiquette, behavior, and commitment to serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. That is quite compact, you know. So let us have a quick look at these different aspects here. So should demonstrate a good standard of sadhana. So why is sadhana so important? Well, it's the source of our spiritual strength, is the sadhana, you know, because as a mentor, we have to have spiritual vision on things. You know, we cannot get bewildered and influenced so easily We have to see things from the spiritual platform. And of course, good sadhana, that will enable us to see things more from a spiritual platform and don't get, bewildered and so on, It's a source of spiritual strength, And also because it is so important, as a mentor, we can say we should actually be exemplary in all fields of devotional life, ideally, We serve the devotees by being a good example. That's actually a service to younger devotees, and not only younger devotees, but any devotees, that we set a good example that inspires others to also follow it. And it encourages us that, yes, it is possible to be steady and exemplary in devotional life, and we get the spiritual benefit and result from good practice. So Krishna consciousness doesn't have much value if we don't see good examples, right? So as a mentor, it is, one of the main and foremost ways how we preach, how even as a preacher, our preaching mainly happens through our personal example, So that's why sadhana is very important, that we are exemplary in sadhana. And actually, in some temples, like in Chowpatty and in Mumbai, they even say the sadhana should be visible. So it's not enough, especially if you do live near the temple, it's not enough to just say, oh, I do it all at home, I chant at home and I listen over the internet. No, as far as possible, our sadhana should be visible. We should actually chant with the devotees, or we should attend the morning classes in the temple at least sometimes. Or, for example, in Mumbai, big city, not everybody can make it to the temple. So there, I know also that mentors have this program that they say, anybody can come to my house, between 5:30 and 7 and chant japa with me together, So in that way also, the sadhana is visible. You can go there and see that your mentor chants, So as a mentor, we should keep ourselves above suspicion, that there's no suspicions. Oh, is he actually chanting or maybe not? We never see him with a bead bag. Is he actually attending Bhagavatam classes? Is he doing some hearing? No, it should be, visible so that there is no doubts, that we are nicely following and practicing. That is ideal, Then should demonstrate good standard of etiquette. Well, this is a whole separate seminar in itself. I mean, in the book Sheltering Relationships, I am going much more into all these details of etiquette. And in regards to etiquette, well, there's different aspects of Vaishnava etiquette, simply our behavior, our social conduct, how we behave towards seniors, how we behave towards children, and especially how do we behave towards the other gender, Vaishnava etiquette towards the other gender, very, very important, that, I mean, of course, in the Western world, and South Africa is also part of the Western world, often we become a little slack and easygoing, and we have all this free mixing and mingling going on. But actually, strictly speaking, there is not too much room in Krishna consciousness for simply friendship between the two genders. No. Because we understand, first of all, we know Prabhupada said butter and fire, are good, but if they come too close, the butter melts. So this man-woman attraction is just so strong. And there is such as subtle sex life also, So even if we enjoy the attention, the association of the other gender, this is already subtle sex life, actually, So basically we can say the the association between men and women in Krishna consciousness is really, should be limited to really what is absolutely necessary for performing some kind of service, and not much beyond that, actually. And the more we keep this etiquette strictly in our life, the more we keep our life pure and our consciousness pure. And then we can also, you know, be more used as an empowered instrument in you know, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So because Prabhupada told us purity is the force, you know. So that's why it is advisable for a mentor to really keep his spiritual practice and his personal life pure, and not, you know, enjoy there on the subtle level and this and that. You know, I mean, in some parts of the world, it is quite common that men and women hug each other. You know, they're not married, but when they welcome each other, they hug each other, they embrace each other. But actually, in Krishna consciousness, there's not really room for this, actually, even though, of course, amongst the non-devotees, this is a common thing. People hug each other and all that. But yeah, in Krishna consciousness, we understand this is already actually subtle sex life. And for all these, you know, emotional needs of hugging somebody, well, that's what family life is for. That's why we should get married. So, and in family life, we can fulfill, you know, according to the Shastric recommendations, we can fulfill all these emotional needs, you know. And that keeps our other relationships pure and free from these emotional needs. And then we can, you know, then our spiritual life and our preaching has more of an edge to it, because we keep our personal life and practice pure, you know. So that's why it is very recommended, you know, to actually be very exemplary in our etiquette and behavior, you know, with the other gender especially. And there's also other, you know, as we said, there's other areas of etiquette, not only towards the other gender, but we are a little limited in time. So I only want to make these few comments about being strict in our behavior with the other gender, you know, because very easily, I mean, you know, we have a very high divorce rate in ISKCON, and usually, or very commonly, divorce starts, it always starts with some, you know, overstepping of the Vaishnava etiquette, that we somehow allow ourselves to be, you know, to relate too closely and loosely with somebody from the other gender, and then we become close there and attachment develops, and then we break up and we, you know, get together with somebody else and all these kind of things. So it usually starts with Vaishnava etiquette, that we don't follow the Vaishnava etiquette strictly, and then, yeah, butter and fire come too close and we get attached and so on. Emotional dependence develops and all these kind of things. You know, so to avoid that, we have to be strict in the etiquette, you know, especially if we serve as a mentor. Yeah, so much to etiquette and behavior. We take that in one there. And then the last thing should demonstrate a good standard of commitment, you know, commitment to serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So that means, you know, we should, we should really have this integrity and this chastity to Prabhupada in ISKCON. You know, that there's not some, maybe some Radha Kund Babas and this and that and a bit of Gaudiya Math and so on. You know, this, is not so favorable for serving as a mentor. There has to be really this, this integrity to Prabhupada, you know, that we really know we are indebted to Prabhupada. Prabhupada is the one who saved us all. And even though there may be so many, you know, shortcomings in ISKCON and so many, things we have to work on, but still we want to sacrifice our life for that, to make ISKCON a better ISKCON and not some, some unclear mood there of not really committing to ISKCON or something. So, because naturally if a mentor has this mood, of not being so committed to ISKCON and Prabhupada, that very easily his mentees will follow in that mood also, and he will not be able to really bring his mentees to really surrendering to Prabhupada and taking shelter at Prabhupada's lotus feet, So, but this is, important for a mentor, Yes. So maybe let me see if there is so far any questions just about the points we have discussed so far. Do we have anything which needs more elaboration or something? Or is this all pretty clear?
As far as I can see in the chat, there aren't any questions as yet.
Okay, so if there are no questions, then we just continue. No problem. So now the next one is also a really important thing. Should be willing to extend him or herself to help others and have the spirit of sacrifice. Should be compassionate and have a genuine and selfless concern for the welfare of devotees. So we can almost say, if a devotee has this mood, of this mood of sacrificing himself or herself, for the upliftment of others with a selfless and genuine concern for their welfare. If a person has this mood, then most likely he will naturally want to fulfill all the other criteria, Yeah, no questions now. I'm just starting now to make some points. Sorry, we'll keep it for later. Yeah, so if a person has actually really got this urge, this burning desire to actually help other devotees in their spiritual development, then they will want to be exemplary in their sadhana, in their etiquette and behavior, and. So from that one desire of really wanting to reach out to devotees and encourage them in their spiritual development, this is one of the foremost points. Then so many other qualifications will follow from that burning desire. But on the other hand, we can say, even if a person has all the other qualifications, but if he doesn't have this one, that he's got that spirit of sacrificing himself for other devotees, then he will not be such an effective mentor. Being a mentor or a counselor, or however you want to call him, it's not a job for, Saturday afternoons from 3 to 5 or something. No. You actually have to make yourself available at any time. You have to be there for people when they ring you and so on. You have to be accessible. If somebody has something really, on their heart, and then, wants to talk to you and you say, oh, sorry, not now, maybe, next weekend or something. This can be so discouraging for a person that they will never, ever approach you again, So a mentor has to make himself available, and really have this mood of sacrifice. You want to put again the link for the materials in the chat? I think some people joined us who may not have it, right? Just Savyasachi Babu, put the link again there in the chat so people can download them. Yeah, so this is the point, this this willingness to sacrifice is so important, you know. But also we have to say this willingness to sacrifice, the spirit of sacrificing, has to be also balanced with spiritual intelligence, you know. We cannot just sacrifice, oh, be until 12 o'clock on the phone, oh, my mentee needs me. No, you know, it has to be balanced. And it, you know, and sometimes we may come to the point where we have to say to our mentee, well, sorry, we talked about this so many times, so why don't we get into action now and we actually do some service here or something? Because sometimes people also just want our attention. You know, they are attention seekers and they want our attention, you know. So we have, and this is even in preaching like that also, you know, sometimes on a Sunday program or even on book distribution on the street, people just enjoy our attention and they just like to be talked to. And then, you know, if we talk there for 1 hour to the point on this, to the person on the street, then the person may say, okay, it was very nice talking to you. Yeah, no, I won't take a book today. You know, so we just wasted a whole hour there and the person is not even seriously interested in it, just enjoyed, you know, the company and that they had somebody to talk to, you know. So as a mentor, we have to be able to discriminate and see when our efforts actually fall on fertile grounds and when we may just have to say, so now we've talked enough about it, so you work it out, you decide now, you know. So it has to be, you know, that this spirit of self-sacrifice has to be guided by a spiritual intelligence. And interestingly, even on book distribution, we find this, you know, when a book distributor likes to hear himself talk and he likes to show how much he knows the philosophy and what he all knows, you know, he actually gets some subtle gratification there of talking, you know. So, and then when we have some slight subtle motive there, when we are not 100% selfless, but we are getting something out there from this whole exchange for ourselves, then we often fall into this trap that we just, you know, waste our time and the person doesn't even take a book, you know. And a similar thing can also enter in the mentorship, you know, in the mentor-mentee relationship, that very easily we may enjoy the feeling of being needed by others, that others need us, you know. And if we have that as a main motive, that we serve as a mentor to others because we want to fulfill our emotional needs and we need to feel needed, then this, you know, our mentoring is not a pure thing anymore. Then we are actually, you know, fulfilling our own needs there. And this is not advisable. Then it's very easily some kind of, you know, emotional symbiosis happens there, that the mentee needs the mentor emotionally, but the mentor also needs the mentee, you know. So then it's just hasn't got that sharp Krishna conscious edge anymore, because it's not pure, it's not really selfless on the more subtle level, but we fulfill our own needs here in the service of mentoring. And this, yeah, is then not so effective, you know. So we have to, you know, understand this in a deeper way, this willingness to extend ourselves and have the spirit of sacrificing ourselves, this compassionate, genuine, selfless concern for the welfare of other devotees. You know, this has to be deeply understood, that it is selfless and not just, oh, sacrificing, you know. But yeah, we actually, it is a matter of detachment, we can say. We as a mentor has to be detached. And this is often not so easy, you know, because we give ourselves, we sacrifice, you know, and then people may not do what we advise them to do. I mean, see, there's so many things which we will not be able to discuss now because, for example, a mentor also, he's not meant to solve people's problems, you know? No, a mentor is, he should help the devotee to see things from all different angles and come to his own decision. And the mentee has to take responsibility for his own decision, you know? So the mentor should not spoon feed the mentee with solutions. I think you should do this. I think you should do that. No, this is not a good style of mentorship. You know, a mentor should simply help the person to see things clearly from all different angles and come to their own decision and take responsibility for it. Because if the mentor just spoon feeds the mentee with solutions, you know, then very often the mentee will not take responsibility for his action, and he actually will blame the mentor. My mentor told me I should do this, you know, so now I did it. No, not like that, you know. We want to train people to take responsibility for their life and their decisions and not just blame the mentor, and the mentor has to work out every problem or something. This is not what it means to be a mentor, you know. Yes, very often these things are not so deeply understood, you know. And also the mentor has to be detached. So if the mentee does something different, he makes a mistake, he doesn't follow the advice we may be giving, still we have to, you know, go on and support the mentee and be there for him and give all the support and further friendship, and not, oh, you didn't do as I told, so now I'm not your mentor anymore, and you know. So we have to be detached, you know. We can't be attached to certain results and to control the person or something, you know. But so it needs maturity, it needs detachment, you know. It's not an easy thing, not an easy thing. But as I mentioned this morning, it's a whole churning process of an artist, because also in the mentor, all kinds of things can be exposed. They come to the surface, you know, when we were not so selfless, when we somehow wanted to control and manipulate or something. This will all come out, you know. But important to understand that it's not that mentorship, you know, brings along problems. No, the problems are in our heart. You know, the issues are in our heart. And just through this whole exchange of giving shelter and accepting shelter, all different things come to the surface. They're exposed, you know. Yes, that's the problem, you know. So, because sometimes I come across this, that people say, oh, yeah, we tried this mentorship thing and it doesn't work. Too many problems, too many disappointments, you know. So no, the problem is in our heart. The anatas are in the heart, you know. And the whole giving and accepting shelter process exposes all the issues, and they come out. And that's what we want, you know. They become visible. So that's what we want, you know. And then we can deal with them and purify the heart, and we can reflect and so on, you know. Yes. So let me see what else we have here. Yeah, next one is, should be a good listener, able to listen to people he or she is trying to serve, and be a good communicator. So again, this can be a whole seminar for itself, what it means to be a good listener, to be a good communicator. You know, there's so many Sometimes, you know, when I do the seminar, 15 hours, we do some role plays. What does it mean to be a good listener? You know, what does it mean to be a bad listener? As example, people are on their phone, you know, somebody wants to talk to you. And then the phone rings. Oh, sorry, I have to answer this. Yeah, 1 minute. And talk on the phone. Yeah, continue. And the phone rings again. Oh, sorry, I have to quickly, you know. Or on the computer. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm just continue writing you something, but I'm listening. You know, so I mean, if we deal like this with people, they will never ever come again to reveal their heart, you know. Or even a little thing, such as always looking at your watch. What is the time, you know? So naturally the person feels, you know, my mentor has no time for me, you know? He's always looking at the watch, you know? Makes a person very uncomfortable. If they come with something they really want to reveal their mind about, and then the person all the time looks on the watch, you know? So there's so many little things, you know, already giving the ready advice, not hearing people out, and, you know, giving the stereotype advice. Oh, you probably haven't been to Mongolari for a while, and just chant Hare Krishna, you and Maya, and all these kind of things, you know. Not very helpful, you know. Yeah, so we actually have to, you know, we have to be a good listener, you know. And also we should never take sides before hearing all people involved. You know, that's a real big one. We make this mistake all the time, that we pass, you know, judgments on persons or on situations by only hearing one side of the story, but not the other side, you know. This is a real no-no, you know, yes. But I come across this so often. Oh, you know, we hear some gossip, we hear some talk, some opinion, and then we have our judgment on the situation. You know, even in marriage problems, you know, let's say a married lady goes to her female counselor, tells her what's happening in her marriage. If she wants to have a clear picture of the situation, she also has to hear his side, what he's got to say about it. Because from his side, the whole situation may look very differently, you know. So only if we really hear all sides involved, then we get a more clear understanding what is actually taking place. You know, even in the secular society, this is done, you know. In a court case, every single witness is heard for hours, for days, for months, you know, and only then the judgment is passed, you know. So we have to apply the same principle in our life also. We cannot pass judgments without really hearing everybody involved. This is a really important thing. And I come across this so often that devotees don't do this. They make this mistake of simply, you know, passing judgments just on hearsay, on rumors, what people say, you know. Yes. But hearing is a very, you know, subjective experience, actually. There is no objective hearing experience. Even here now in the seminar, every single person hears something slightly different according to their mindset, their material attachments, you know, their previous experiences, you know, and so on. Everybody hears something completely different, you know. So yes, we have to be very careful, you know, with passing judgments. This can be very discouraging for a young devotee if the seniors, you know, if his or her seniors pass judgments on them simply based on what other people say, and they don't take the time to actually hear him also, you know. Yes, very important, you know. And being a good communicator means, you know, we openly communicate clearly to the point, not some hidden things and beating around the bush, how we say, you know, and wishy-washy, but very clear and straightforward and honest, you know, and not duplicitous or something, saying one thing to one person, one thing to another person, and, you know, yeah, so there has to be clear and good and honest communication, you know. Mentor has to have that ability, you know. Also, another thing we can mention in this connection, it's not written on your list here, but I have it with pen written next to it. The importance of confidentiality, you know. I mentioned it already very briefly this morning. Confidentiality, such an important thing, that we really don't use what other people, you know, say to us, that we use this, you know, in some way against that person, or we just blabber it around to others and then everybody knows, and then there's all this gossip going on. So there has to be clear, clear communication and confidentiality. And this confidentiality, I mean, in these modern days, especially with all these social medias and stuff, it's almost a matter of impossibility, you know, that people cannot keep things confidential, you know. And it's also connected with a false ego, because often we want to be the one who knows the big news first, and I know something that you don't know, and you know, but I'm the confidential person of this person, and he told me, but he didn't tell you, and I'm the one who tells you now, you know. So it is a certain subtle way of showing off there, you know. Yes. So yeah, it's quite a thing, you know. And now next one is also a really super duper important one. It is almost as fundamental as the very first one, that we can only give shelter to others if we are sheltered ourselves. This really sets the foundation. And now the next one also really sets the foundation, because a mentor has to be stably situated within his or her own ashram. Yes. We have to be stably situated in one of the ashrams. Yes. So it means, or let us understand, why is this like that? So it means, let us say a man or a woman is not married, but also not in the renounced phase of life. So that means there must be some unfulfilled needs, right? Because, you know, if an unmarried person, if he is renounced, then he would be a brahmachari or vanaprastha or whatever. But because there's some needs, that's why he's not renounced. But because he's also unmarried, that's why they are unfulfilled, right? So therefore, the way I have experienced this whole, you know, program of giving and accepting shelter in Ukraine and Chowpatty, they don't encourage single people to serve as mentors, but people actually have to be situated in one of the ashrams, you know. So of course, single people, meaning brahmacharis, of course, they can be mentors to brahmacharis, you know, but unmarried people, bachelors or bachelorinis, I don't know how the ladies are called. So, you know, they cannot serve as mentors. And this is even more so for ladies, because we women have quite some strong emotional needs. This is built into the female vehicle so that we can be good mothers, and we want to be mothers. So, you know, woman's body brings along a higher emotional need. And the place to fulfill these needs is family life. But if a woman, for example, is not married, but she's also not firmly established in the renounced phase of life, then there is a good chance that there is some unfulfilled emotional needs. And then very easily the mentees become the source of her emotional fulfillment. Right? You understand what I'm saying? Yes. Yes. I have observed this. We have had this experience, you know, in Ukraine and other places, that very easily then, you know, let's say an unmarried lady, she has these mentees, you know, then she, in a subtle way, she may discourage her lady mentees to get married, because then she will lose them for her emotional satisfaction. Then they have a husband who will fulfill them emotionally, you know. So in a subtle way, she can discourage them to move on in their life and get married, you know, and the whole, and some emotional dependence enters, you know, and then, yeah, it becomes, yeah, a little unhealthy, to put it that way. It becomes unhealthy, you know. So that's why one should be stably situated in one's ashram. And like, even one can maybe ask, well, what about Brahmacharini ashram? No, Brahmacharini ashram is also a little emotionally unfulfilling, and temple life is a little dry for most women, you know. So actually Brahmacharini life is meant to prepare us for the Grihastha ashram, you know. So basically it means that the main portion of mentors are actually well-situated grihasthas, right? Yes. They are the main portion of mentors. And of course, there can be brahmacharis also, so they are mentors for brahmacharis, you know. Yeah, we can maybe discuss now a little bit the ashram situation, you know, who is taking shelter from whom, you know. So first of all, it's very natural that brahmacharis take shelter of brahmacharis. They accept the brahmachari mentor. Persons who prepare for the vanaprastha stage of life, they should take mentors who are in that ashram, because that helps them to move forward into that direction. So now unmarried boys who don't want to become brahmacharis, they should also accept a grihastha man as a mentor, because that will help him to move towards the grihastha ashram, right? And unmarried ladies should also take a married lady as a mentor, because that will help her to prepare and move forward to the next ashram, to the grihastha ashram. So we basically stay in our ashram, or we accept a mentor who helps us to move forward to the ashram we want to situate ourselves. You know, that's basically the concept. So, you know, like a grihastha man should not really take a mentor who is a brahmachari, you know. How can a brahmachari guide him in all different aspects of grihastha life, you know, how to deal with women, how to follow the fourth principle of no illicit sex life? How can a brahmachari deal with these things, you know? And he doesn't have any experience. But that, of course, doesn't mean that a grihastha man cannot have a brahmachari friend who inspires him or something. Of course, that can be there, of course. But a mentorship relationship is a very close and confidential relationship where you really share, you know, all different challenges you experience in life, you know. So, and that should really be, you know, a person who has experience with the same challenges, you know, and that means you should be in the same ashram, you know. And also, we can now maybe briefly touch upon the Vaishnav etiquette, that women take shelter of women, men take shelter of men. There is no room for a lady to have a male mentor. No room for this. Absolutely no room. Because as we said, this mentorship relationship is a very close one, you know. So how can a lady go to her male mentor and share some marriage problems or something. No, has to be a woman. We have to stick to our own gender. Women take shelter of women, men take shelter of men. Yes. We have had many sad and bitter experiences. I know of one case where a male mentor has female mentees, and a lady came to him with her marriage problem. Both were married, but she comes to him with her marriage problems. So, and then the solution to her marriage problem was that they got together. They left their spouse and their children and walked out together. So that was the solution to the marriage problems. So no, we don't want that. No. So that's why it's very important that we stick to our gender. Women take shelter of women, men take shelter of men. So now, understanding, let's say a married couple has another married couple as mentor, So there she takes shelter of the wife, he takes shelter of the husband. So now, let's say the lady, she has the wife as mentor, but she also has a husband. So in some situations, the husband also can give the male vision on things, right? But the mentor will always be his wife and not him for her. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, yeah, yes. And the same even when we are not married, let's say a young girl who just starts off in her Krishna consciousness, or she's in the Brahmacharini ashram, and she has one married lady as counselor. So she also has a husband, and sometimes it may be helpful if the male rational vision on things enters, and then maybe they talk together to her or something. And the same for a man, a young unmarried man has a male mentor, but he also has a wife, maybe, should be, unless he is a brahmachari, he should be married. That's what we just said. So he has a wife. So in some situations, it may be helpful if the motherly female vision also comes in. So then they maybe sometimes can have a talk together with him, where she can also add something from a women's motherly point of view, so there is room for that, but it always has to be a husband and wife together counseling one person then, if we want to bring the other gender in, but the mentor should always be of the same gender, Is that clear? Let me see if there is some questions just about this now, just about the ashram thing and the gender thing. Are there any questions there? Just to make sure there's no confusions or something.
There was a question, but it has definitely been answered. The question was, should a mentor only mentor the same gender devotees?
Okay, so we just answered it. Good. See, the next point here actually goes together with this point of having to be stably situated within our ashram. It says there, should have healthy and appropriate ways of fulfilling financial, emotional, and managerial needs, and thus never exploit his or her dependence for those needs, right? So this is exactly the reason why we should be stably situated in our ashram. So this also, for example, means financially, one should be stable as a grihasta, So it's not enough just to be married or something, but actually we may be married and still our emotional needs are not satisfied, There's unfulfilled needs. So that's not good enough. Actually, the marriage has to be healthy and balanced and strong. We are well situated in our married life, and all our needs are fulfilled in an appropriate way, which means emotional needs are fulfilled in an appropriate way. Also financial needs, if we are financially needy, this may easily in subtle ways enter the relationship with our mentees, that we somehow expect some donations there or something, And also in regards to financial dealings, it's highly advisable not to have any business relationships with our mentees, because we may easily think, well, I'm the mentor of this person, so I can help that person by employing them and paying them or something. This is helpful, why not? But, very easily there is then a different dependence, a financial dependence, and this may clash with the spiritual dependency, right? In other words, let's say, a mentor employs his mentee in his business, so then the mentor, the boss, may be dependent on his worker there. So then he may feel, I cannot really point out, honestly what I should tell him, because otherwise he may quit his job and doesn't want me as a boss anymore, but I need him, so in that way, the financial dependence can clash with the spiritual relationship. Or the other way around, the mentee may be too dependent on his job, and his mentor employs him, he pays him, his livelihood depends on the employment of the mentor. So now the mentee may feel, I can't really reveal my mind to him openly. Maybe I'm struggling with the 4 principles, but I can't even tell him because I'm employed in his Govinda's restaurant. I'm the cook there. And then he will not let me cook anymore if I tell him that I have a problem in following the principles. So these are examples how a financial dependence will clash with a spiritual dependence. So therefore, better to keep the mentor-mentee relationship pure, only, spiritual, no financial dealings, even with giving loans. I've had personally that experience. I was sometimes lending money when I was a grihasta, lending money out, then people don't pay back, they can't meet the payments. Oh, it spoils the whole relationship. So I categorically never ever lend money. If a mentor is wealthy and wants to, help his mentee and pay him a ticket to India, great. If he doesn't expect the money to be paid back, fantastic, very nice. But all this money dealings and lending and so on, this can really spoil the whole sheltering relationship, so better to keep financial dealings out of it, yes. So what else do we have here? A caregiver has to have sheltering and confidential relationships with equals and seniors. So it means, a mentor should not only have a mentor himself, but he also needs other trusting, confidential relationships, especially with equals. I mean, in the whole seminar, if you look at the second part of second session, there's a whole topic about envy, how envy manifests towards equals, towards seniors, towards juniors. And there we come to the conclusion that this equal relationship is most purifying, because there so easily this mood of competitiveness enters, basically that we say, yes, all right, we are equal, but actually I'm a little senior, I'm better after all, and then very easily there's some competitiveness coming and so on. So that's why equal association is very, very important for any kind of senior devotee, even for gurus, for mentors, they should have as much of equal association as somehow possible, because that is the association where we really show true color, whether we are humble servant or whether we are competing and trying to be senior. So the equal association, this is actually most purifying, And also a caregiver or mentor has to regularly recharge his or her spiritual strength, meaning they should go on seminars, on retreats, on, pilgrimage, whatever, to actually really regularly recharge and nourish his spiritual practice, his bhakti ladder, Otherwise, if we don't regularly recharge, then very easily, we can become stagnant, we become spiritually bankrupt. We lose our spiritual strength and our advancement is choked, and then very easily all kinds of weeds creep in, attachment to power and title, position, control, money, and then, conflicts come, disturbances, lack of caring spirit, and, so the regular nourishment, actually, this is not only for mentors, this is also even for managers. Very often we come across this, that if we have a lot of responsibility, we think, oh, I'm so needed here, I cannot take time out. I cannot go on a pilgrimage. Who will run the show here? I'm so needed. But this is not a good way of arranging things. We have to plan in our regular time out. Otherwise, very easily, we can just become, spiritually weak, So this is also a very, very important point, for any senior devotee who carries responsibility, not only for mentors, but for managers just the same. Okay, so this is basically, the list of qualities and qualifications we have to cultivate in order to be able to serve as a mentor. So now, let me maybe add a few little things. We've got still half an hour time left. Let me just add a few little things. How to start, a supportive structure to facilitate this exchange of giving and accepting shelter. So I mentioned already very briefly this morning. So now we have the list of necessary qualifications. So the first thing to do is that we look in our community and we identify possible shelter givers who could fit into this category of giving shelter and serve as mentors. Even if they don't have all the qualifications yet, but they should at least have some basic ones, meaning being properly situated in one's ashram. That is a basic thing, which has to be there. That we are either, a well, properly situated and healthily situated grihasta, or brahmacharis for the brahmacharis, or then, more, grihastas who head towards the retired grihasta life, vanaprastha life. The kids are grown up, the business is handed over to the elder son. They move towards the vanaprastha ashram, fantastic. Actually, I just remember, actually the main and foremost mentors should be vanaprasthas, because they have this whole life experience. They have such wealth of life experience, what it means to go through the grihasta ashram and to stay together and, bring up the children and. So that is actually the main and foremost contribution of the Vanaprastha ashram. And I dare say, because we are not recognizing enough this importance of guiding and serving as mentor, this may be one reason why the Vanaprastha ashram has not really manifested in ISKCON. I have a whole course on that also, Vanaprastha ashram, yes. What it means, because nobody even talks about it. It practically doesn't exist. So how can it exist if we don't even value, the contribution this ashram makes? And the main and foremost contribution this ashram makes is giving guidance and shelter, reaching out, sharing life experience, uplifting. That's what the Vanaprastha ashram, gives to the society, Yeah, so anyway, let's go back to this point of how to start. So we look in our community and see who is a possible mentor, and as I mentioned this morning, that includes the managers also, if they are properly situated in their ashram, if they're, if they have a healthy and balanced family life, so that includes them also. So, and then, as I mentioned briefly this morning, they meet regularly, ideally every week in a house program, building their relationships. Because already this morning, a little bit this topic came up, that there's often some, some gap between the managers and other senior devotees in the community. So that gap has to first be bridged. Otherwise, we can't do anything, That has to be first bridged. So, and whatever time it takes, doesn't matter. We just start on that level by bridging the gaps on the top level, that really all those senior devotees have trusting, confidential relationships where they want to put themselves out for the other devotees and cooperate in caring for the community. So, and then, whatever time it takes, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, so then some of these persons can be appointed as serving as mentors. So actually mentors should be appointed by a senior person. They should not be self-appointed, because we may think that we are perfect mentors and we are really suitable for this, but other people may have a different opinion. They may actually see that we are not so balanced, or that we have a tendency to be controversial and this and that. So it's So we should be invited to do the service of serving as mentors. That's how they do it in Ukraine and Chaupadi, So of course, let's put it this way. It's not that, giving shelter, accepting shelter is absolutely dependent on a whole structure and a whole system. No, it actually already goes on informally in many people's lives, actually. It goes on informally. But then not for everybody it goes on informally, So to actually really capture everybody in that net of care and shelter, it is very helpful to have some kind of facilitating structure and system there, you see. Yeah, so that's how we start, that the possible future mentors they meet. So, and then after some time, some mentors are appointed. So, all right, you please start now to serve as a mentor. So then the mentor also starts a house program, preferably in his home, if his home is big enough. So, and that program should be open to anybody, whereas the weekly program amongst the mentors, this is a closed program for only those persons who could possibly serve as a mentor in the future, Whereas the program that the appointed mentors have, this is an open program for everyone, you know. And then usually we do it like this, that the mentor meets with his people every week. And this program amongst the mentors, this shifts to every 2 weeks. But both programs always continue parallel. The mentors have an open home program, you know, for anybody who wants to come. That goes on weekly. And then the forum of possible mentors or already appointed mentors, they continue meeting every 2 weeks. So mentorship, giving and accepting shelter, should be ideally based on regular programs, on sanghas, because that builds the trusting relationship. You know, I have come across some communities in the world where they understand, yeah, mentorship is important, but they just make a poster with all different people, you know, and their names and contacts and say, here, if you need a mentor, pick any of them, you know, but this doesn't work. This is pretty useless. No, there has to be regular programs. And by attending a program, you know, and regularly meeting with that person, then the trust builds up, and then we can open our heart, you know, like that. Yeah, so mentorship has to be based on regular sanghas. And we should do this anyway, you know, this is Vaishnav social life, to get together and meet and discuss and associate and chant in kirtan together and so on, you know. So it is a pretty simple program, but yet one has to have a bit of determination to get it going, you know, like that. And I mean, I have seen this in big communities like Kiev in Ukraine, you know, Kiev, normal Sunday program, they get about 800 people to come. And they're all locals, they're all Ukrainians. There's only very few Indian-bodied people or something. There's maybe 10, 15 Indian-bodied people, but the rest is all local people from Ukraine, you know. So it's a very big community. So people can really feel lost there when they come to the temple and they don't know anybody, so many people there, you know. So this kind of mentorship program is a perfect program to actually involve newcomers. And we usually don't announce it that, oh, this is a mentorship program and you should, you know, choose a mentor now. No, we don't do this. We simply announce to people, so Friday evening is a program in this person's house at that address and that address and that address. Saturday evening is this program, you know, and you can just go and check them out. So that's how people choose a mentor. They just go for 1 or 2 months to one person's program, and then they go to another person's program, and then they check out this program. And then very, very quickly they feel where they can connect the best and where they feel mostly at home, you know? Yes. So, and in that way, you know, newcomers are very quickly pulled into a whole network of care. Because I have come across this also, that sometimes people say, I've been coming for the temple for 5 years, but I have not built any friendships. I just come, attend the class, you know, join the kirtan. I may be serving the prasadam. I may even be cleaning the floor afterwards, and I go home. And that's it, you know. And there's no deeper connection built, you know. And people don't even, you know, get taught how to offer their food and set up an altar or whatever, you know. And often they come for many, many years to the temple, but there's no deeper relationships developing, you know. But if one has such a program of mentorship, then people are pulled in home programs, because home programs, very different atmosphere. You know, the temple is always a bit official and formal, but then in the home, there you connect more on a personal level, you know, and that, yeah, that builds trusting relationships, you know. Yes. yeah, so that's basically how we go about it, you know. So let me see if we have any questions or if there's any more topics now which we have not discussed that you maybe want to, you know, go in certain directions now with a further discussion. I don't know. So what is your interest? What do you want to discuss further?
There are two questions here in the
Right.
chat box. There are two questions in the
Yeah.
chat box. The first one is from Manjumeda Matsuji, and she says, Hare Krishna Devaki Matsuji. If an elderly married Matsuji has a young male devotee wanting advice for his spiritual life and sees her as his spiritual mother, is it still not okay to mentor this devotee?
Well, see, mentorship is really an ongoing thing. You know, it's a different situation. For example, like me as a traveling preacher, I only stay usually for 1 week in a place and then I'm gone, you know, and I'm not the type of person who hangs on the phone or how are you and this and that, you know. So I sometimes get men who ask me for some guidance and some advice, but I don't consider myself as a mentor. Because mentorship is also that, for example, if the person is in hospital, then you have to go and make sure, you know, you bring prasadam, or if the person has some problem with their family, you know, you may have to get involved, you know, or if the person has trouble with his wife, you know, so there can be some kind of shiksha relationship maybe, but mentorship very easily, because it is an ongoing relationship. You're in the same community, you meet each other all the time. Very easily, some emotional dependence sneaks in. And I've seen this. I know examples, you know, I really know examples where she is 30 years older than he, and they're married, you know. He is 27, she is 57. I know couples like that. Yes, yes. So I'm always saying butter's butter, fire's fire. You know, it doesn't matter old butter, young butter, yellow butter, white butter, you know, butter is butter. And fire's fire. It doesn't matter old fire, young fire, this fire, married fire, unmarried fire. Fire is fire. Butter is butter, you know. So yeah, it's advisable to really stick to our own gender. Because also see this man, he may be unmarried, right? So then he fulfills his needs for some feminine energy there, you know, by accepting a mentor who is in a female body. But this is also unhealthy. He should get married, and there he gets his feminine energy, you know. Yeah, so all these things, they're very subtle, and we may think we are above any dangers and so on, but even as an example to others, you know, not such a good idea, you know. Better he searches for male mentor. Yes. And as I was saying, you know, his mentor can be a man, and then he also has a wife. And then if really necessary, sometimes they can talk together, you know, with him. But yeah, it's just against the etiquette, you know, and maybe also the husband doesn't like it if his wife is always there with some other man and so on, you know. Yeah, not so good. Not so good. I mean, see, I'm not making any hard and fast rules here. I'm just, you know, sharing my experience from Ukraine, you know, and there we would never, you know, encourage this. No, 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 you know, It just invites subtle impurities there, you know. I mean, the Shastra says that, you know, a father should not even sit on the same seat like his daughter, my God, you know. The Shastra is so strict in this man-woman, you know, separation, you know, that they don't mingle, you know. Yes. So, yeah, I wouldn't really recommend that, you know. Yes. Sorry. What's the other question?
The second question is from Moira Matiji. Please do keep the questions coming, and if you wish to raise your hand, please do so.
Yes.
The question says, many of these qualities are those found in counseling training. Would you recommend a mentor undertake quality counseling training courses prior to becoming a mentor?
Well, I wouldn't really say it depends so much on this. I mean, I know many mentors who never had any professional, you know, counselor training or something. But then again, you know, it may definitely help to do a few courses on, you know, on empathic listening, nonviolent communication, and all these kind of things, so that there's definitely some tools out there in the material world which we can use and which are helpful in our service of mentorship. But I mean, most of these qualities, I would say we cannot just train, you know, to give balanced advice according to time, place, and circumstance. I mean, we have to be balanced. We have to be mature. We have to have some understanding of the practice of Krishna consciousness, you know, and having a good standard of sadhana, etiquette, and behavior, commitment to Prabhupada's movement. I mean, you know, these things cannot be trained in some counselor seminars or something, you know. The willingness to sacrifice oneself, you know. I mean, there's only very few, I would say, very few qualifications which we can improve by training, you know. That's basically the hearing. Should be a good listener and able to listen to people she is trying to serve, and be a good communicator. There definitely some outside training can be very helpful, but I would say all the other ones, yeah, you know, it is limited, I would say, to what extent some training courses can really help. It's mainly really the listening and empathy and, you know, and communication. There we definitely sometimes need some help with some, you know, professional tools, definitely. But in all the other qualifications and qualities, I don't really think the professional training is so required, you know. Yeah, that would be my answer. But, you know, if there is something, you know, which we can accept, then definitely. But I mean, like in Ukraine, there's so many nice counselors. None of them ever had any training courses or anything. No. But what they do in Ukraine, they have twice a year, of course, apart from Corona times, you know, last year they didn't have that. But usually they have 2 times a year a long weekend retreat for all the counselors. So all the counselors come together, they all come to Kiev for a long weekend. And this is about 200 to 300 people, you know. Yeah, that's how big the community is in Ukraine, you know. And they come together and the counselors amongst each other, you know, the more senior counselors, they give some training programs. They may give some interactive seminars on empathic listening and nonviolent communication and this and that and so on, you know, that they do, you know. But they don't send all the counselors now to do some courses or something, but maybe some of the, you know, counselors who are more experienced and who are more senior, they offer something to the others. And wherever they get their training and information from. I don't know, maybe they read some books or they have some personal experience and realization, or maybe they go and do some program there, some course or something that I don't even know. But Ukraine, you know, there's not that much offered on such kind of courses. You know, the whole society is pretty basic and so on. So, but they do have this kind of weekend retreats twice a year, you know, and devotees, you know, try to, you know, educate themselves and get some new inspiration and new insights and tools, how to serve as a mentor. And of course, if a, you know, if a country has 2 times a year such a retreat, that really moves the whole mentorship program and this importance of sheltering relationships, it moves that completely in the center, you know. It's similar like Sankirtan, book distribution. If you have some book distribution festival there after the Prabhupada marathon, some guitar and this and that, it really emphasizes the book distribution. It moves it in the center. And the same thing is with this mentorship program also. You know, if you have 2 times a year such a retreat, it really brings attention and importance to this thing, you know. Yeah, and sometimes they invite some devotees from Chaupadi, they're Sridham Prabhu and Kishori Mataji, you know, they're traveling, preaching in different parts of the world, and they are, you know, preaching this whole mentorship idea. They sometimes come from Chaupadi, and yeah, and they give on these retreats some seminars and some insights and so on, you know. So yeah, that they do, and this is very inspiring and wonderful for the devotees there, you know. What else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mataji. There's also Chaitanya Bhav who has his hand raised.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Mataji, I had 2 questions. One maybe more relevant, so I'll keep the second for later if we have time. So the first question was that when we have some form of this mentoring relationship, maybe it's not perfect, but it's something, then as mentors, as you already pointed out, they should demonstrate a good standard of sadhana, etc. And let us suppose that the mentor has a good standard of sadhana, but still has, you know, some here and there, some shortcomings in terms of his sadhana. It's not the perfect.
Yes.
So in this case, so basically I'm saying that these shortcomings are not serious, but maybe there's something like that. So in this case, in the relationship of the mentor with the mentee, how important it is to talk about it or not talk about it, because you also want to be honest, but at the same time you also don't want to unnecessarily distract your mentee, you know, because maybe, you know, you don't want them to be distracted by these things, and if they can do very well on their own, why to set them a lower standard or something like that. So how important is it to just, you know, to talk about these things or not talk about these things?
You mean talk about, you know, the difficulty a mentor has in
Yes.
following good sadhana?
Yes, yeah, and assuming that they're not serious difficulties, because if they are, then one shouldn't be a mentor at all. But if it is something non-serious, but still it's not perfect to Prabhupada's standard.
See, one general principle is that a senior person should actually never discuss his personal problems with a junior. That is inadequate, you know, because the junior person, first of all, very easily it may, you know, it may make him lose faith, even in the process of Krishna consciousness. If he hears, oh, my senior, he's been a devotee for 30 years and he's still struggling with this and this and this, you know, so he doesn't know what to do with it. And also it's not his, his position to give any guidance or anything. Oh my God, So we don't want to, cultivate that in young devotees, that they now guide the seniors or give even suggestions or something. This is completely inappropriate. And it also can very easily, cultivate a fault-finding mentality in young devotees, that they see faults. Oh yeah, my mentor, he has a problem in his sadhana, and what about the others? And maybe he's got other problems too, and so on. I mean, therefore, we should never, ever, a senior should not take shelter in a junior. That's completely against the etiquette. And this sometimes, unfortunately, happens, that senior devotees, especially also ladies, that digest often their problems by talking about things. And then they go to a junior person and talk about their personal problems. And then afterwards, they feel so relieved. Oh, I had somebody to talk about. Oh, now I feel so much better. But then the young devotee feels completely bewildered. They just got a whole bucket of garbage over their head and they don't even know what to do with it. So this should never, ever be done. So if a mentor has some problem in his sadhana, he should talk about this with his mentor and not with his mentees. Yes.
Yeah.
And then another thing is also that, of course, this list, I mean, sometimes people say, oh my God, this list, you have to be a pure devotee to fit in there, So, and then people say, oh, we don't have anybody in our community who fits this list, So, of course, we can't be too idealistic. We have to work with what we got, and we have to somewhere start, So, and even if people are not perfectly fitting all these qualifications, still, we said, already the Sangha amongst the possible mentors should go on. And I have had that experience in Ukraine, that many devotees have shared with me how much shelter this Sangha gives them, because there's a special intimacy there. If, devotees meet in a closed circle amongst seniors, and actually it gives them shelter, and then they realize, oh, in my community, there is actually nice devotees from whom I can learn something, yes, and who actually have qualities which I don't have, so as a senior person, we may feel, oh, there is actually nobody in my community who I can accept as a mentor, often that problem comes up, or the question comes up. So then the idea is, there must be somebody who is a little stronger in something, than we are. And we can kind of say, we may have certain persons who we take guidance from in certain aspects of life, yes. So, and then those persons, they together form one body of shelter, So we may, especially as a little more senior person, we may not find, one person in our community who we can accept as a mentor if we are ourselves a little more senior. But by having this, regular sanghas of the senior persons who prepare for this service of being a mentor, in that sangha, we will get to know each other more. And that sangha, I also have to add, is not a managerial or organizational sangha. It's a Shravanam Kirtanam sangha. We read something, or it can even be like a study group of the Bhagavatam. Everybody reads half a chapter or chapter at home. Then one person prepares a 10-minute summary and presentation. Then the others, while they're reading, they're marking some questions, some points which they don't understand or which they find very interesting, some realizations. So there's a whole sharing, and inquiring from each other and hearing from each other going on, And that actually, cultivates trust and faith and intimacy, and also we feel sheltered there, you know. So, and that's where we should talk about our sadhana problems and not to our mentees, you know. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Mataji, this was more also in regards to, like, for example, when we have to give class and we talk about the perfect principle. So we know what we want to talk about. It's the perfect principle, but I just feel that sometimes if we are not ourselves up to the perfect standard, should we like say those things in class? But maybe this is not very relevant to this.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different topic, really, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you know, as a mentor class giver, we shouldn't put ourselves in this position that we are ideal and perfect or something. You know, no harm to also admit that, you know, we also have shortcomings. We're also working on ourselves and so on. It's always good to take the humble position. But then no need to just open up our whole problems there from the Vyasa-san or something. I mean, this is, you know, also inadequate, you know. But no need to pretend that we are perfect and complete or something, you know. No need for that, you know. Also, maybe let me just briefly mention that there's also room for several mentors on several levels. But preferably, we should always have a mentor within our community, because that person can really see and experience how we are serving, how we are practicing, what is our sadhana, what's our mood of cooperation, and. But then there can also be additionally a mentor in a neighboring city, in the same country, or even in another country or something, you know, who we maybe correspond by internet or this and that. But a local one is always advisable, you know, like, for example, often people ask me, or can you be my mentor? And I usually say, well, I can play some role in your life, no doubt, but please, you also look for a mentor in your local community, because it can be very convenient to have a mentor who's never there and who doesn't know what's going on, you know? So, and as we said, you know, we cannot pass a judgment on something unless we, you know, hear everybody involved. And if a mentor reports about his or her life, you know, actually we cannot even give so much, you know, importance to that, because as we said, we cannot really assess ourselves. You know, the mentee may think he's doing really great, but then his authority in the temple may have a different opinion, you know? Yes, so that's why, you know, a long distance mentor, so to speak, you know, if there is some problem in the community, it's so much work for him. He has to actually contact all the people involved and see what they all say about it. And oh my God, you know, so that's why much more effective if there's also a local mentor. And then the local mentor and the long distance mentor, if we may call him like that, then they can communicate or something, you know. But a local person is always more effective, you know, because that person is really there on the spot and knows what's going on and so on, you know. Okay, do we have any other questions?
Yes, Mataji, there is a follow-up question to Chaitanya Bhav-Prabhu's question. And it says, there are two questions actually. When a mentor shares their problems with a junior, perhaps they might in their mind be trying to make themselves relatable. What is a better way to be relatable as a senior towards a junior?
Well, in the book is a whole chapter on respect. And actually just recently I gave a once-off seminar, Respect, the Foundation to Intimacy in Bhakti. It's somewhere there on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook page. You know, if you go to this Facebook page, Institute for Spiritual Culture, you will find the recordings there. And there I'm explaining, you know, that respect is the foundation to intimacy. And actually there is this trend now in these modern days that we think, you know, respect creates gaps and distance and is impersonal and formal. And if the senior puts himself on the lower position, on the same position like the junior, and is all buddies and equal, then we are more accessible to the junior. But this is a misconception. You know, we can actually only uplift a person from a senior position. And the way we make ourselves accessible is that we are personal with a person, that we actually have some genuine concern for their welfare, you know, and that we are affectionate with a person, and we are, you know, empathic. We understand what they're going through and all this kind of thing, you know. So that's how we make ourselves accessible, and not, you know, kind of pretending to be on the same level like the junior or something. This is not a good idea, you know, because we can only uplift somebody if we are superior to them. Then we can uplift them, you know. And we can still be a friend, but there has to be respect there, you know. Yeah, I mean, if you want to hear about the deeper details of respect, and it is also in this book here, Sheltering Relationships, there's a whole chapter on respect and exactly that topic, you know, how we sometimes mistake respect to create gaps, you know, but that is a misconception. We don't understand deeply what respect means, and that's why we take it to be formal, and we try to create some intimacy by throwing the respect out the window. But what we get instead is over-familiarity. That's what we create instead, you know. So yeah, we should not be confused about this, you know. Yeah. Any other thing?
Yes, Mataji, there is a question from Mandla Prabhu. He says, Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. What are the basics of the Grihastha ashram?
Oh, this is a whole different seminar. My God, I'm just now writing a book about it, actually. The book I'm writing now, or which I've just finished, is Entering the Grihastha Ashram. How to do it, how not to do it. A whole book just about that. And I'm just waiting that my layout person is recovering from Corona in Mayapur. And then I'll get the layout done, and then I want to print it, and I can't wait to get it out. And this year I hope to find some time to do the second volume of the Grihastha topic, Family Life as an Ashram, Secrets of Success. So this is I have a 15-hour course on that, you know. So we cannot just quickly answer this now, you know. This is a whole separate topic, you know. But if you're interested in the future, maybe we can do a similar seminar like we did now, you know, on this topic. Maybe we can do this also sometime on the Grihastha Ashram or something if there's some interest, you know. But yeah, I don't even want to start on that because we are already going a little over time here. And I wouldn't even know where to start, you know, to do something in 5 minutes here or something, you know, this whole big topic. But also on my YouTube channel or website there, you know, I've got a website too, the rootsofspiritualculture.net. You know, there's recordings from Grihastha seminars, you know. Yeah, because I give these courses usually every year in Mayapur. It's a 15-hour course, you know. The rootsofspiritualculture.net, yeah, that's the website, exactly. You know, so it's a 15-hour course. There's recordings on that on this website. You know, if you want to listen to them, you will find so many things there, you know. Anything else?
And then I think Mandla Prabhu also had a question, a hand raised to ask a question.
Okay. Where is he? Oh, they are up in the top there.
Hare Krishna,
Okay.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the class. Humble obeisance to Srila Prabhupada. The question I'd like to ask, because you had mentioned that women and men should be very, I guess, careful in how they mix. And especially you mentioned in the Western world, also here in South Africa, it's very common for women and men to mix, even
Yeah.
mentioning hugging and missing each other. So obviously in the Krishna conscious community, the Krita and the philosophy can end up bringing conversation amongst one another. We exchange numbers to engage in these topics. So the question is that how should we then engage as me as an unmarried person and also engaging with other unmarried ladies or whomever, or specifically, I guess, ladies now. How should that engagement be so that we know there's a proper, I guess, proper understanding between what is actually going on here? I think that's the correct question I'm trying to ask. But how to
So
best engage?
you're basically asking how to cultivate and develop the Vaishnav etiquette in connection with dealing with the other gender?
Yes, especially
Yes.
if we're in that space, yes.
I mean, I dare say it depends very much on how seriously you want to practice Krishna consciousness.
Mhm.
Like any community, has an inner core center of devotees who are very strict. They're Brahmin initiated. They really want to, strictly practice.
Mm.
So they usually are more strict in these etiquette things. But then you may also have some bigger community, and there's people there on the fringe, so to speak, which are more on the edge, and they're just coming and so on. So obviously we cannot impose these etiquettes on people. We cannot impose, because for people who are not so familiar yet with Krishna consciousness, who may not even be chanting 16 rounds, they may not even, aspire to get initiated or something. So we can't be too heavy and forceful with them, or you can't speak to any man here or any woman or something, So it is basically a question of education. So in many communities, the temple devotees or the preachers, they're offering some bhakti program, even for the congregation, where they come once or twice a week and they go through all the different topics of the bhakti program, and Vaishnava etiquette is one of them, And they learn these things, that, the mixing between men and women should be kept to a minimum, So it really depends, kind of what caliber of devotee we are, whether we take this Krishna consciousness really seriously and we really want to keep our life and our consciousness very pure, so that we can be a useful instrument in Lord Chaitanya's preaching mission, or whether we are just, have Krishna consciousness more like a sideline in our life and a hobby, and we just go for the festivals and the kirtans, so it really depends, that every community has a broad spectrum there of, all kinds of shades and grades and mixtures, of seriousness. Because let us understand, we all come from the materialistic conditioning. And there, of course, this man-woman attraction is so prominent, and the whole mixing is going on in society. So, but then Krishna consciousness is meant to transform us. We don't want to stay as we are. We want to transform. We want to, transform our tastes, our likes, our different dislikes, our patterns of behaviors. So we want to transform, So, and it is a question of transforming our consciousness, that we gradually, more and more imbibe the Vaishnav way of life, the Vaishnav mentality, the Vaishnav consciousness and mood and lifestyle, But let's put it this way, usually as a rule, especially when temples have a brahmachari ashram, that requires at least that the brahmacharis are trained and being very strict and not unnecessarily talking to the women, you know, and that also the women know that they're not meant to yuck it up, how we say in Australia, you know, just to, you know, crack jokes and talk and laugh with the brahmacharis, you know. This goes against the brahmachari principle, you know. So you will find, like here in Europe, you know, the strictest, I mean, this is also one reason why the brahmacharis are almost an extinct species of life, you know. You hardly even find any brahmacharis anymore worldwide, you know, because of this tendency to mix so freely. That goes completely against the principle of brahmachari life. So, and here in Europe, the most pucker brahmachari ashrams is London, Bhaktivedanta Manor, Soho Street. And there's a strict mood, at least for those who are more involved in the temple. You know, they're very, they follow that very strictly as protection to the brahmacharis. Otherwise, there will not be a brahmachari ashram if there's some loose dealings, you know. But then, of course, Bhaktivedanta Manor is a huge community. There's so many young people, also second generation and so on. So they may do their thing and, you know, play volleyball with the boys and the girls together or something. That's their business, you know. So it depends really, you know, how strictly we want to practice, you know. So, yeah, but the best thing is education and upliftment so that people understand, and we cannot impose and force these things on people. Even though if there's a brahmachari ashram and maybe also a brahmacharini ashram, there has to be rules for the ashram residents. That's very clear, you know. Otherwise, it will disturb the whole atmosphere and the brahmachari ashram will fall apart and so on, you know. Yes. Yes. Anything else?
It seems there aren't any more questions in the comment section.
Okay.
Nor any hands raised.
All right. Manju Mataji is just now raising her hand.
Yes. Manju Mataji.
What would you like to share?
Hare Krishna. Okay, it's just one question. Thank you so much. Please accept my humble obeisance, and thank you so much for your very enlivening discussion. Regarding service, okay, if there are two grihasthas working in a deity kitchen, and if they are not a couple, they're not married, but they are male and female, is that does that go against Vaishnava etiquette in ISKCON?
Wow, now we're really going into the nitty-gritty details here. See, I am not here. It's not my position to make some rules here. You know, every temple has their own standards and rules and so on. But, you know, in general, I mean, from my experience in temples where I regularly go, they do try and avoid this. They do try and avoid this, you know, because as we said, butter and fire, no matter how old or younger butter and fire is, married or
that's the reason I asked.
Yeah. So it just, it just, yeah, butter and fire just come too close, you know. Yes. So usually we try, you know, many temples. I can only give an answer in general. I cannot say, oh, this is bad or this is good or whatever. So the principle is the more strict we are and the more we keep the butter and fire apart, the more pure is the atmosphere. You know? That's the principle.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Mataji.
Anything else? There was another hand up.
Yes, from Chaitanya Bhav.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sorry, this is the second question which I said. It's not completely relevant because, I mean, it is relevant, but So let's see. The question is that the university preaching, it's not something that is the most appropriate for the kind of sheltering relationships that you're talking about, because the senior students are, themselves not married in many cases, and there are other so many factors. Like the exact sheltering relationship that you're talking about, it's not maybe possible. And also because it's a preaching program, so maybe there's just one senior devotee who has to preach to every newcomer, and the newcomers are both boys and girls. So I just wanted to ask, like, in this kind of a compromised situation, I mean, what can we really do as a somewhat senior devotee, like, because many of these we don't match many of these criteria. So
Yes, I get the point. I think we have to distinguish between a preaching situation and mentorship. So of course in university preaching, it overlaps a little bit, that the student preachers, they also act as mentors in some way, So, but, and they may also preach to lady students, So it's not that, oh, this cannot be done or something. But then we also have to understand the limits, that we have to understand that if we are not properly situated in one of the ashrams, for example, as a student, then our capability of giving shelter may be a little limited. It may be compromised, especially for ladies. There it is even more so, because we women have these higher emotional needs, So, and yeah, with preaching to the other gender, well, we have to be cautious, we have to be alert in fear. This is one thing that Prabhupada recommends in one purport in the 10th canto. The devotee should always be alert in fear, that we understand, all right, for the sake of preaching, I am taking a risk here. I am reaching out to ladies, and then, I mean, I don't know how your student preaching works, but in many other countries, there's also ladies involved in the student preaching, and they take care of the women, Or let's say a book distributor meets a man, a Prabhu meets a lady on the street, and she comes to the temple. So the first 1, 2, 3 times at the Sunday program, he will of course give her a little attention because he gave her the book, and he asked her, he invited her to come to the temple. So it would be really weird for this young girl if she comes and then he completely ignores her or something because he can't talk to the other gender or something, So then 1, 2 times he may talk to her, but then very soon he should hand her over to a senior lady, and he should explain, actually, I'm a monk, so, and you please, you take guidance on, you develop your relationship with the senior Mataji here, or even if she's not that senior, but she is experienced, well enough experienced to bring that person further in Krishna consciousness. So the principle is, as long as we only associate with the other gender as far as absolutely necessary to bring that person to Krishna consciousness, then we also receive some kind of protection from Lord Chaitanya, But if we start enjoying that relationship in a subtle way, and we stay longer with this, person from the other gender, even though we could actually hand her over, we don't do that. We enjoy that attention, from her, and we like to be her hero who preaches to her and so on. So then we lose that protection, So we have to be alert in fear. that we know, okay, for the sake of preaching, I'm taking a risk here, you know, and we are very careful, we are very cautious. We reflect that we don't allow ourselves to enjoy that attention and association of that person of the other gender, you know. It's a very subtle thing, you know. Yes. Yes. Okay, well, maybe we'll finish on this note. So thank you so much for attending the seminar. I hope it was some inspiration and gives some insight. So also, if you have further questions or something, you had my email there on the chat. So, you know, I'm always happy to communicate. Or if anybody wants some books, let me know. Then we can see how we can, you know, how we can arrange it that you get them. And maybe in future we can, you know, have some other programs. You know, I thought this was quite effective, you know, even though first I was a little doubtful, or 2 sessions in one go, will people actually really participate? But, you know, there was some good group who did participate also in the afternoon session, and I'm hoping that more people will hear it later, the recordings who couldn't attend and so on, you know. So I feel very satisfied with the whole event, and, you know, having the opportunity to try and serve you all and inspire you and giving some insights and share some realizations and so on. So yes, let's leave it at that. And I wish you all the best. In a bit more than 2 weeks' time, we have Nishinga Chaturdasi. We're already gradually gearing up here for this, and Simhachalam. We have our deities, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nishingadev. We have Gauditai also, but they are more on the side. But Lord Nishingadev is the center of attention here. So we will have a nice festival for them, hopefully, even though we have Corona situation here also. And yeah, so let's see, you know, if we want to plan something more in future, then simply contact me and we can see. Okay, so thank you all very much for joining this. And I wish you all success and all the very, very best in your further spiritual journey. Yes, so thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki, Gaura Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very, very much, Mother Devotee. And just want to encourage the devotees to be in touch about these very, very wonderful books that Mataji has written. If we can get some books, this is also some way to reciprocate with Mataji giving her time, her wisdom to lecture. In fact, the cyber world, we're supposed to offer Dakshina. So our Dakshina should be, let us get these books, let us apply them in our lives. I think that would satisfy Mataji's mission to share this wisdom. Thank you so very, very much.
Also books are a more effective way to get knowledge out, you know, because how much will you really remember after hearing a seminar? But if you've got the book, you can read it again, you can look up at it again and so on, you know. So that's why Prabhupada put so much emphasis on books, you know, the message can reach so many more people and we can look at it again and so on, you know. So, yeah. Okay, good. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mother Devotee, for that transformative and illuminating 4, probably 5 hours. And that is really amazing. There are a couple of announcements they would like to make.
Okay.
Okay, so Devaki Mataji does have an active Facebook page that is Institute for Spiritual Culture, as well as website that is www.therootsofspiritualculture.net, and can be communicated with via email on devotee@palmho.net as well. And then please kindly visit, like, share, and follow WUSA social media platforms and include Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at WUSA108. Please help us to get 1,000 follows and subscriptions and more. And we thank you very much for your support. We are happy to announce that our morning Japa sessions are back. Details around the daily program will be communicated in the WUSA weekly WhatsApp group. You can join the WUSA weekly WhatsApp group via the link at www.wusa.online to receive regular activity updates and communications. This group is for quick announcements and will not be used for spam, and only admins can post. We are also happy and excited to announce that our Books Are the Basis book club is up and running. You can catch us every Thursday evening for a jam-packed reading and sharing of realization sessions via Zoom. And you can visit www.wusa.online to find out more information and join the WUSA weekly WhatsApp group to keep updated and participate in this exciting program. And on that note, a quick update on the fundraiser for the WUSA Preaching Initiative. The Sankirtan bus has been ticked off the WUSA wish list, and the WUSA House Yoga Studio is nearing completion. We thank you all who have opened their hearts to us and donated towards the preaching effort. The bus was the first item on the WUSA wish list of items needed to mobilize the preaching effort, and we do still have a long way to go. Please kindly visit wusa.online to download the wish list from our donations page on our site. And for more information, you are welcome to contact us via email at admin@wusa.online. And thank you very, very much. Her Grace Mother Devaki Matiji Ki Jai.
Thank you.
Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you for your generosity, Devaki Mataji.
Hare Bol, Hare
I had a whole weekend with you, I feel like I had a retreat.
Yes, it was a pleasure. Thank you for joining.
And today built so nicely on what you taught us yesterday. It was perfectly together.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone, my name's Maxine, and the first book that I read from Prabhupada was The Matchless Gift, and it was given to me by a very dear devotee, and it took me a while to start reading it, but that was also part of Krishna's arrangement. I wasn't ready yet, and then a few months later I started reading The Matchless Gift for the first time, and it completely changed the way I looked at everything. I had a very negative outlook on life and people. I'd kind of given up on people. I'd kind of given up on life. And then I read this and it just completely changed everything. It broke that illusion. It's because it told me about illusion Maya, and it showed me that we are living completely under this whole illusion of this material world, thinking that this is life, that this is our body, this is our identity. And it completely just smashed that out the window. And it was so refreshing to read something that just resonated so much in my heart and in my soul. And it just, when I started reading it, I couldn't stop. And I think I read it in like 2 days, and then I read it again, and it was just, it just made me want more and more of Krishna consciousness. And after that I just found more and more books, and like Prabhupada, I just couldn't get enough of his words, of his wisdom, because he just spoke about life and the soul and our real identity in such a way that this is for everyone. This is the path that everyone should be following and that everyone should be taking. We all need to find our true identity, which is that we are the soul, part and parcel of the Lord, of Krishna. And by serving Krishna with unalloyed devotion is the only way forward, so we can reach this perfection of life. We all want happiness, we all want perfection, and this is how we achieve it. So, thank you.
Woosa, wake up South Africa. Woosa, wake up South Africa. You've been sleeping far too long. Wake up South Africa. Now come along and sing this song. Wake up South Africa.